Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling.
Welcome to the Top Tier Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Josh, with my lovely co-host, Dawn. And today we are going to be talking about both Smackdown from September 20th, I think it was, and Collision from September 21st. And to that end, if you're here for Smackdown coverage, I don't know if you're going to get a lot out of this. Because we didn't get a lot out of Smackdown. This particular episode of Smackdown was very much a filler episode that didn't progress anything with any storylines.
Nothing moved.
and I'd like to say there wasn't really too much that I would classify as bad. The opening match and the end main event were okay. But there was nothing in either of them that is like, oh my goodness, something that I really want to talk about. And there was nothing in the episode of SmackDown that made me really excited to see the next SmackDown. Save for the fact that since nothing happened in this SmackDown, I'm hoping something will in the next one. They gave us a huge video package with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, and this feels to me a little bit wasted at this juncture because it's about their tag team match. And I mean, let's face it, the real heat between those two is between each other over the undisputed title. So to use such a big and grandiose thing to really just measure dicks a little bit felt like a waste. And it also sort of felt like this is kind of the only thing that's big, or they want to be big, or will be big in this episode of SmackDown. So this, I guess, was expected to carry the mediocrity of the rest of the episode. And I'm not trying to just sound like I'm hating on it, but I really was disappointed with it. I'll skip to the end and give the review. This certainly wasn't top tier. If I was grading it in a, like using grades from school, this was a C to C minus, maybe even a D episode.
Yeah.
Just because it didn't capitalize on anything that was happening. Breaking down the matches, we had LA Knight versus Andrade kind of as the opening match after, Roman and Cody did their running out to the football field to measure penises. And I mean, nothing that happened out there was anything that couldn't have been done in the backstage in Nick Aldis's office. You know what I mean? Or just absolutely. The two running into each other in the hallway.
Yeah.
So it was a whole lot of pomp and circumstance over nothing is how it felt to me. But there's not a whole lot more to say there because nothing really did happen. They just sort of measured dicks and that's it. And it's like, well, we got that last SmackDown at the end where, Cody was reaching his hand out to do the tribal chief thing. And it's like, oh, they hate each other. We get it. But then you get to LA Knight and Andrade. And I mean, the match was okay, but there really wasn't, for me anyway, there was no point where I figured they were going to transfer the title off of LA Knight, so it felt like you just wasted any kind of potential heat or build-up between Andrade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, look, there's no heat there for me. No matter how much they try, there's just no heat there. And I listen, I'm not saying that Andrade or... Am I saying his name right?
I think you were combining Andrade
This
El Idolo into
I
one
am.
word, and you got to Andrade, which is fantastic.
Andrade it is. Okay, so it's not that he can't go. My man can go. The same thing for all three of them. Okay, all three of them can go in the ring. It's
Right, like
just
Carmelo is who
yeah,
you're talking about.
yeah. Carmelo, LA Knight, Andrade. They can all go. That's not my argument here. My argument is, pick a lane. Okay, the heat is honestly with Andrade and Carmelo. That's where they
Hmm.
wanted it. That's where they
Hmm.
put it. I mean, we're 6 matches in now. So
Well, we are
if that
now.
ain't right, yeah. Well, I mean, if there ain't no heat, then what are we doing? Okay, like they're about to give us a dozen
No,
here. Okay,
I
they're about
I fully
to,
agree. I fully
and
agree.
then
And go ahead.
you want to
Go
throw.
ahead.
I'm sorry. You want to throw in LA Knight. I just want to get this out. You want to throw in LA Knight. This is not competition. Okay, LA Knight just whipped ass for that belt. All right, like what was it, Logan Paul? Like, he's whipped ass for that belt. He's gonna hold on to that belt for a second. Fans want him to hold on to that belt for a second. Whatever's going on with Carmelo and Andrade, work that shit out, please. Please keep neither one of
Yeah.
them are ready for some belt competition. Handle whatever this bitter bitch shit is y'all got going, and leave LA Knight out of it. Give LA Knight some other heat. You mean to tell me there ain't nobody else backstage? There ain't nobody
Well,
else backstage.
and
What for? Give him some heat. Come on.
yeah, and this feels very awkward because it's like LA Knight is the like third wheel in his own championship.
Exactly.
And Andrade and Carmelo are the ones that have heat, and not for nothing. I mean, we're 5 matches deep, and after this sort of throwaway title shot that they had with Andrade, we're now going for match 6 with Carmelo and Andrade.
Yep.
And like this has been the last 6 or 7 weeks coming that this will be the case because this week they actually had Andrade fight someone other than Carmelo for 5 seconds. And I
Yeah.
mean, it feels very road worn. I mean, not that Andrade and Carmelo aren't good competitors, but we have watched them go at each other and seen everything they're going to do. Like, it's like, how are you going to keep this interesting? Because it's already not. And then
Yep.
it's like you tacked on the fact that LA Knight is involved, and he really isn't. There's no heat. He doesn't care who it is. Like, that's his whole promo is hit it and quit it. He doesn't care. And
Yeah.
so we don't care. Like, it's just not. It's
Yeah.
throwaway. The whole thing is, and we wound back like, and this was the whole theme of this SmackDown, which is why we're just going to rush through this thing. Is that this SmackDown moved no gears, pulled no levers, and everything either wound up in the exact same spot or worse because it didn't go anywhere. So that is worse. So LA Knight and Andrade results in Andrade Carmelo 6. Whoop-de freaking do. So, like, we're right
Yeah.
back to having one more match between those two.
Yeah. And
So
what did you need
that,
LA Knight for again?
yeah, we really didn't. It's like, why is he even here? That's what I mean by Knight feels like he's third wheeling in his own like number one contender
Yeah.
championship angle.
100% agree. It was.
Then
I mean,
we
it just honestly was a waste of time.
well, and I think that might be a good summary of this SmackDown, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest.
Just a waste of
Um,
time. Nothing happens, guys. Like nothing. Like, and
no,
if you guys think we're wrong, like leave us comments. Say what you're gonna say. But honestly, nothing happened.
yeah,
Like,
and then we go from there to Apollo Crews and Giovanni Vinci, and there's not a lot to say here either. They just took one more opportunity to bury the crud out of Vinci. Like, I'm not sure what they're going for here. Like, why
yeah.
did you repackage Vinci just to make him a joke?
Like,
And
who did he tick
honestly,
off, man?
it feels not only like an incredible waste of time, but it feels like you're burying Vinci like for no reason at all. So
Yeah.
I'm not here for it. It's whatever little giggle you get over like a squash match of this caliber, like I honestly think it's not worth what you're wasting in terms of you being the WWE is who I'm speaking to here. The
Yeah.
WWE
Right.
took the time to pull this guy, pull him out of the spotlight from whatever he was associated with Imperium, repackage him as like, I'm Vinny Vici or whatever. And he's supposed to be this refined, like ritzy dude and all that stuff. And then he just comes back to lose. Like,
Yeah.
what is the point of that? Like, this
I
is
have
just
no.
burying him.
I have
And,
no idea.
if you wanted to try and put over, maybe, ideally you could put over both of these men, but, two thoughts in the same head, that's insanity. You could put over Cruz and Da Vinci if you really wanted to. I think Cruz, and we were just talking about this, has relatively zero personality or character. He is generic wrestler
Yeah.
356. I mean, he's jacked, but that's it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough to salvage Bobby Lashley's boring ass either. And but if the idea is to put over, like Cruz and Vinci, or Cruz even, why can't you put them both over? Why not actually invest in making it a rivalry instead of a joke?
Would love to know why. Would love to know
Completely
why.
pointless waste of airtime right there. And so moving on from that, we come to Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton versus Bayley and Naomi. And this actually had a little bit of interesting stuff to it. The idea is that in this tag match, if Nia wins, then whoever on the other team gets pinned leaves SmackDown forever, ever, if it's Nia's team that wins. And if it's one of the two women on Bayley and Naomi's team that wins, then whoever got the victory would be the number one contender to go against Nia Jax.
Mhm.
And this theoretically sounds like it has some interesting stipulations. But somehow, some way, they figured out a way to actually accomplish none of any of that and arrive at having answered none of those things. Like, we still don't have a number one contender because they went with this like stupid both Bayley and Naomi pinned Nia at the same time kind of crap. And so we're back to square one. Like, nobody got kicked off of SmackDown into perpetuity, and no number one contender was determined. So thank you for spinning the wheels and getting nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's just the sum and total of that match. Lame. And then what do we have? We've got the Street Profits and Kevin Owens versus the Bloodline.
Yes.
And this felt like the most throw together copy AEW's homework because we really don't know what we're doing this week kind of freaking main event.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, right down to the DIY coming out originally, and or they were supposed to be the tag team partners for that match with Kevin, but then they got beat up basically by Bloodline, and so they couldn't.
Is just kind of a copycat idea from what they did the week before with Kevin Owens and that like jobber wrestler. But look, here's Randy Orton.
Yes.
Ricky.
Yeah. So they, yeah. So they. I mean, I don't know, man. Like this match, and it's not that we don't love the Street Profits, KO. Like, we love the wrestlers involved. We're not dogging them or giving it, like, taking any marks off of them or the wrestling or anything. What we're saying is it was a no reason pointless match, and
and
it resolved nothing, and nothing went nowhere. Yeah, it was thrown together. DIY came out anyway for some freaking reason. Man, it was just, it felt like somebody went, "Oh, AEW did this. Oh, we gotta do something like that."
Exactly, and I wanted to hit on that because I said copying AEW's homework. Well, in one way, it copied their own homework in that this, swapping out DIY for the Street Profits felt very much like what they did the week before with Kevin Owens' match against what is it, A-Town Down Under. And so they did that, but then it's also a 6-man match for the main event, which is exactly what was done on Dynamite. So it's like, you guys were so creatively tapped for this episode of SmackDown, and this just was that in spades.
Absolutely. And if I was gonna,
who do we have that we think people like to see? We'll throw them in a match together with zero stakes of any kind.
Yeah.
We've got the Street Profits and the tag team champions, but God forbid that there's a belt on the line in the main event. That would be a crime. And we also have like the least interesting elements of the new bloodline, which are Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. And they gave Tamatanga, for some reason, a chance to get on the mic and just remind us all
Wow.
of how ridiculous and unintimidating
Boy.
he seems, because he wants to be like a goofy Tasmanian devil. So the only
Oh
elements in
boy,
that
oh boy.
match that were really, and no ding against the Street Profits, but I would have much preferred to just see Jacob Fatu and Kevin Owens have one heck of a match, because the rest of it was
Yeah.
extraneous and pointless. And it moved
Yep.
nothing. It moved no needles.
Nothing
And
went nowhere.
you know,
That's
they also seem to be telling some road to nowhere kind of a like, oh, KO is gonna turn on Cody Rhodes. Not really. Like the only reason we even kind of have that vibe for the most part is from the commentary team trying to shove it down our throats.
yeah.
So these all feel like a whole lot of like, this will go nowhere, and it absolutely didn't. And so SmackDown C minus, the end. You could totally skip this episode and nothing would be lost.
I
So
agree.
that is unfortunate. We typically really look forward to SmackDown, and this week's was very much a disappointment because it didn't go anywhere with anything.
Yeah.
So that is the end of our coverage of SmackDown. Moving on,
Boop, boop.
we will now discuss Collision from Saturday night, which, between Dynamite and Collision, AEW kind of killed it this week. It was really good.
Yeah.
AEW Collision was kind of a banger start to finish. I mean, there was maybe one kind of weaker-ish match, and that came in the form of Mariah May versus Lady Frost. And I wouldn't even necessarily say that match was super weak, although Lady Frost looks a little bit rusty
Yeah.
in certain spots, and she looks a little lead-footed. But I'll go into detail when we get to covering that match. But it was
Yeah.
more that it wasn't the like banger that the rest of the matches were.
yeah.
We start out, they open like fiery hot on Collision with Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara defending the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship. Oh, look, a belt on the line right out the gate.
Right out the gate.
I mean, I know they did that with LA Knight, but like, I knew, like, WWE feels like such a foregone conclusion that nothing's going to move unless it's on like a pay-per-view, that I just can't get excited for theirs in the same way. Whereas the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship between Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara and Undisputed Kingdom, we could look at that and we could honestly say this could go either way. We could see new champions tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the truth of the matter. But we ended up with an absolute insane, like, Texas street fight kind of a match. What do they call it? A bunkhouse brawl.
Yeah.
And this was a crazy match that could have been on one of AEW's pay-per-views. I mean, real talk. It ended up with like blood and crazy high spots and just insanity. Just to cover some of it, at one point, Dustin Rhodes was chasing the Undisputed Kingdom up the entrance ramp with a taser and got super kicked. But, at one point, he ended up doing a running bulldog with one of the members of the Undisputed Kingdom. I think Matt Taven, through a barbed wire covered table. And
yes.
they both had to sort of carefully extract themselves out of that situation. There was another point in the night where, what is it? Bennett. It's Matt Taven's partner, but I'm blanking on his first name.
Yeah. Oh
But it's
my.
Bennett. But Guevara got Bennett into the corner in very much the Shattered Dreams position, and Dustin Rhodes wraps barbed wire around his cowboy boot, and then
Yes.
runs and kicks Bennett in the cojones. And this is insane forever. Like,
Yeah.
at one point, the commentary team were like, "That man has children," and we were both like, "Well, good thing he got that out of
Good.
the way."
Yeah.
Because after
Good.
this, he's not gonna be able to have any more children.
Never no more. It's over now.
Yeah, and we ended up with Sammy Guevara hitting some crazy spots. He, like, from the top of a relatively tall ladder, and I mentioned that like all ladders are tall, but like you know how they got like some that are a little short and some that are pretty tall. This is a
Yeah,
fairly tall ladder that he nails a picture perfect swanton bomb on.
yeah.
I think Bennett again. And I mean, it was just everything you wanted to see. Like this
It
was
was a fantastic opener.
it was absolutely everything you'd want to see in this type of match. It was all of
Yep.
the high spots, all of the tables, all blood covering everything by the end. And long story short, Guevara and Rhodes quite definitively defeat the Undisputed Kingdom to maintain their Ring of Honor championships. And this match just set the tone for the rest of the show. It was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, just so
Amazing.
good.
Yeah, it
So
was good. It was
good.
good.
But
Um,
moving on from that incredible match, we then get to Hologram with two members of the conglomeration, Mark Briscoe and Kyle O'Reilly. And it's them versus the Premier Athletes. And
yeah.
I initially was like, but the Premier Athletes, though? But to be perfectly honest, the Premier Athletes, the Premier Athletes actually put on a decent show. What is
Yeah.
it? Mark Neese? No,
Tony
Tony
Nese?
Nese. Tony Nese and Josh Woods, I think, did especially well. I'm still like not sold on Ari Davari. Like I very rarely see him do anything that makes the match better for him being in it. But Hologram and Mark Briscoe and Kyle O'Reilly were amazing as well. And
Kyle
then for
looked
some,
amazing. Kyle looked
he did.
really good.
And Josh Woods is also looking very good.
Yeah.
Like he comes in there and he kicks people, and the way he's built, it looks like his kicks should literally murder you.
Yeah.
And then he's also very good with like massive suplexes. So this guy looks like he kind of reminds me. He doesn't do as many submissions, but he sort of reminds me of like an MMA guy that has converted over. And maybe he is. I don't know much about Josh Woods, but he's got that look. Like he's a very jacked, like Muay Thai looking fighter who also suplexes your brains out.
Yeah.
And Tony
Like
Nese
I
has been looking better. He's been hitting moves that like I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So
yeah.
it's really just Ari Davari who needs to catch up with the rest of his team.
My only problem with Tony Nese is that he makes me look at very tiny pants, very tiny little uh little wrestling briefs, and I have to see things I have to see things that I don't want to see. That is my only problem with Mr.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
If he would wear something else, that would
some
be
pants.
fantastic. He won't though. And you know what? That's your right, Mr. Nice. You do you do what you'd like. I'm just saying. Sometimes I feel a tad bit uncomfortable. It's on me. It's on me. Just saying.
And
It's
I
me.
mean,
It's my world. You know.
we got what we were hoping for out of Hologram and Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe. And Mark Briscoe's just a treat for every second he's on the
Every
screen.
second that man is on the screen, every time he's talking, listen, he reminds me of that guy that would just come up to you with a shopping cart if you're standing somewhere in public and just start talking to you. Like, but I mean,
Uh-huh.
animated, or he's that guy that stands up in the public bus and just starts flailing and screaming about stuff. He's that guy. So in public, you wouldn't want to meet him, but in the right setting, it would be amazing.
Yeah,
That
I
is my
agree.
story.
No,
And Kyle O'Reilly's new name is Core.
he does look like someone who might walk up to you at, like, say, a bus stop or something, and you'd be like, "Oh no!" But then he starts talking to you, like, "Oh, hell yeah!"
He walks
And
up
it's
to you.
like this
I
dude's
saw them
amazing.
chickens coming at the coop 2 days ago. Like, okay, all right.
It's like, do you need an adult, sir? Oh, okay. No, but no, Mark Briscoe is fantastic, and they put on a relatively good match. They brought Rocky Azucar Romero out for reasons to kind of offset Mark Sterling's interference, but he kind of, you and I both were watching it and we felt like, why is Rocky walking as slow as he possibly can?
I mean,
when
he
Mark
sauntered on over while Mark Sterling was getting his face kicked in, and he's
not getting.
Oh
He
no,
was
sorry.
doing the face kicking. Yeah,
Right?
but
Yes,
yeah.
yes. He's kicking faces. And who is he? Who is he getting? Who was it? Was it Hologram at the time?
I can't remember. It was either Hologram or Kyle O'Reilly, I think, because I don't believe
Yeah.
it was Briscoe that was out there getting kicked to death.
No. One of those. One of
But
those getting
Rocky
curb
was
stomped.
just standing
And
there
then
watching it happen, and it's like, wasn't he
Rocky
here to stop that?
comes around the corner in ultimate slow man motion, like like he was not full of sugar. I can tell you that. Maybe he didn't get his sugar that day.
He was
Maybe
in a
he missed his
molasses mood.
Yeah, maybe he missed his fructose, but my man had no energy, so he just comes around the corner like, ¿por qué? Like he's just ¿qué? What do we have here? Like no, I don't know why that's his accent, but like he just comes to the corner like he has no idea what's happening, and then they slow run away, like Mark and the guy, the announcer guy, because I think it was him too. That's with the Premier Athletes. He was over there kicking.
Yeah, Mark Sterling. That's Mark Sterling.
Yeah.
That is the guy.
Who was the which wrestler? There was a wrestler out there too. You guys.
It was likely Tony Nese and or Josh Woods that were also kicking.
I think it was
Briscoe, or not Briscoe. Sorry, Kyle. I think it might have been Kyle.
I think it was Josh and Mark. I think it was those two out there just dumping the life out of him, and then they just ran off in slow motion when they saw Romero coming up as slow as possible, like.
Yeah, like sauntered over, like, oh, not to put you in a rush, but one of the people that you were out here to help prevent getting the crap kicked out of him is currently getting the crap kicked out of him.
You want to do anything?
That was just the first time, too. Like, later on in the match, it starts to happen again, and again, Azukar, like, slow as he could, walks over, and then he finally grabs... Mark Sterling's lapels like he's going to do something. But then he's like, nah. And he pats him down and he's like, hands off. I'm not going to do anything. But it was really just to kind of keep him in place so that Hologram could fly out of the ring with like a suicide dive at warp drive and obliterate Mark Sterling entirely, which we were like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. At that point, there was just an explosion of tweed suit and confetti.
Yeah.
That's all there was.
Yep.
And we were like, yay!
Indeed. And after an altogether like decent match with a lot of the people that you like to see, because everybody's up on the conglomeration like right now, and they should be because they're great. And a respectable match by most of the premier athletes, with the exception of Ari Daivari. Like the one time I think he got tagged in, he immediately goes for like a sit down and hold him like neck lock, like not even like a sleeper, just a head hold.
Yeah,
just a headlock. So he immediately like killed the energy and made it more boring, and he never had any kind of high spot. Whereas Josh Woods and Tony Nese at least had some cool offense moves. Yeah. And so we end up arriving near the end of the match where, Kyle O'Reilly and Hologram have taken out like the other members of the premier athletes, and Mark Sterling obviously was laid out proper by Hologram, and that leaves us in the ring with Mark Briscoe, who grabs up Josh Woods in the J Driller and nails him with it, and that's 1, 2, 3, and that's the match. And that was a very super satisfying mid-card match.
Yeah. Kyle O'Reilly, or again, his new name is Core. You guys get with it. Core, he is awesome. He is hilarious. And him and Mark Briscoe together is a treat. It's a delight. I'd love to see those two. I hope they keep that going, and I hope they keep... Because, he's basically... I feel like Mark Briscoe is bringing out the personality that Core already had, of course, right? But, he's bringing it out for other people to see, because I honestly think that would have been overlooked. They would have... Because, they were going somewhere, I feel, completely different with Core when he first came back, right? I feel like they were trying to do some, like this weird, like serious, like wrestler type thing with him. And although we noted that he was pretty good in the ring, we couldn't ignore that. We could not ignore his
Yeah,
skill, but we were
but like
also not very
he,
moved by any personality or
yep,
anything that we were seeing
yeah,
until Mark Briscoe.
that's a super good point to make because Kyle O'Reilly could easily be one of those cats that falls through the cracks. Like we were just talking about when we were talking about SmackDown, Apollo Crews. And
Ugh.
Apollo Crews is kind of in that same bucket, right? Like you've got a
Yeah,
very generic sort of wrestler, coming out with what sounds like a normal name. So it's not like a character. It's not like Hologram or the Beast Mortos or something, right? And so, and Mark Briscoe, is tatted up and wearing, so he wouldn't fall into that category. He's crazy. Like he's the
hmm
insane chicken man, and it's fantastic. His personality is so strong that he is a character,
yeah,
but it's a character based on his personality. And Kyle O'Reilly didn't really have any of that going for him. Like he was fairly straightforward in the ring, didn't show much personality, so he could easily fall through the cracks as a very generic performer who doesn't really
yeah,
evoke interest because he's just not that interesting.
yeah,
I mean, even with good in-ring work, that's not enough to carry, investment from the audience if you seem generic. And by
yeah,
pairing him, as you said, with the conglomeration, and most especially with Mark Briscoe, we've gotten to see more personality out of Kyle, and now we're connecting with him, so we care more, which is what you
yeah.
want.
Yep.
And none of that was explored with, say, like as a counterpoint, none of that was explored with like what's happening with Apollo Crews and Vinci when they
Yeah.
could. And it could uplift both men, honestly, but they're not doing any of that.
Yeah.
So it's just a burial by a buried guy. So
Whenever I think of Apollo Crews, though, the first thing I think of is where is Baron Corbin? And I don't mean that in a mean way, but that's who I want to see. I don't know why they paired these two up, and I'm assuming, or I'm hoping, honestly, that because I'm seeing Apollo Crews without Baron, and even when Vinci got upset and attacked him after the match, I didn't see Corbin. I didn't see anybody come out to help
yeah.
Apollo. So I'm hoping that they're separating the two. But by the same token, I'm hoping that they're giving Baron Corbin something, because where is my man? Like,
Well, because that would be
I'd much rather see some matches there from him. Uh
yes, and
oh
that would be another good example of burying like what they did with Vinci, right? They did this whole repackage. Well, Baron Corbin went all the way back to NXT, had a nice
yeah,
run, and a repackage and a nice run with Braun Breaker. He's got Burn the Ships, which is an absolute banger of an intro song. He looks like a beast. The only thing that really might count against him is that the way he speaks doesn't seem like it's as intimidating as, say, I don't know, Damian Priest, but then who is? But like, why waste that? You got all that clout coming in from NXT where he's been repackaged as a total badass, and then you immediately stick him with Apollo Crews, and they're not even on like a winning streak. So it's like, what are
yeah.
you doing with these guys? Like, do you want to just perpetually bury them? So I agree with you. I would love to see more out of Baron Corbin because that dude is 6'8" and he's an absolute beast in the ring. And so why? Why are
Yeah.
why are we keeping a thumb on that? You
I
know?
don't, and I just want just a side note, just a teeny tiny side note about Vinci. This isn't like this. This is like the third time they've done this to him. Because remember, he was doing great in NXT. And he had
Hmm.
the same character that he's come back with now, pretty much the one that we see now. He
Yeah,
pretty much had
except
that.
he's buried.
Right, but I mean, he has pretty much the same personality. Like the cameras and all that. He'd stop and smile and point, that kind of thing. But he could go in the
Yeah.
ring, and he was going for a belt last we saw him in NXT, and then he disappears from NXT, and then they just basically make him a henchman in Gunther's little faction.
Imperium.
So
Yep.
yeah, so then he just basically and he just gets buried there. Like he's the one that they blame all the stuff on. Every time they lose, they blame something on him. Like he
Hmm.
was basically the whipping boy. He was the scapegoat, if you will. Um, for every time they screwed up, every time something happened bad in Imperium, even the last time that he interacted with oh my god, The other guy whose name that just ran right out of my skull. Uh, but the other guy in
Braun
Imperium.
Breaker? Oh no, Ludwig Kaiser.
Thank you. Even when he got attacked by Kaiser, like I mean, he just got obliterated. Then they take him off. They
Mm-hmm.
take him off camera. Then he goes to repackage. So that's the second time. So now this is the third time he comes back, and he's supposed to be the first guy that we met, Vinci. You know, charming, attractive, he can go in the ring. You know, he's got all the goods, he's got all the ladies. He gets in the ring this time, he gets squashed because he's apparently taking too long to take off a jacket.
Yeah,
Which,
they're
first
making
of
a
all,
joke
I've
out
never
of him.
seen such a thing. I've never seen such a thing in the ring. Okay, and he didn't take any longer than say Seth Rollins would have taken. Nature Boy Ric Flair. Like pick a wrestler who wears
Yeah.
like lots of accessories. He didn't take any longer than them. Okay, but apparently that ref just couldn't wait. So that was goofy. And then he comes
No,
out
I agree.
the next week. He's not wearing anything. He's ready to go now, and he still gets squashed.
Yeah,
And then
so-
you have him attack the guy at the end of the match as if that freaking matters at that point. Everybody wins when you sneak attack. Like a Serena Deeb.
No, I agree, and I have no idea why they're trying to bury him, but we can go into that way deeper
Yeah.
when we're discussing the WWE product, but
of course, I just wanted to add that one little tidbit there. That's the third time they've done that to him. That's all. That's all I wanted to bring up.
And it's relevant here because it's a good contrast in how I feel like AEW with Kyle O'Reilly, where we're talking about how they brought out his personality and made someone who could have fallen into the cracks as a kind of generic, forgettable wrestler really shine. And you're right. By contrast, what they're doing over in WWE with some of these talents is absolutely tragic. And it is unfortunate. I feel super bad about that whole situation, and I couldn't tell you what their intention is, but it just looks bad. But coming back over to Collision, we move on from that fantastic match with the Conglomeration and Hologram versus the Premier Athletes, and that brings us back to that. I'm sorry, that brings us to Mariah May versus Lady Frost, and this was an okay match, but it was probably what I would categorize as kind of the weaker match of the night. But it wasn't like a get out of here, you stink kind of a thing. We had Lady Frost versus Mariah May, which on its face just looks like this is going to be Mariah May. Right, because we haven't seen Frost pitched as strong enough to be an actual contender for, Mariah May's belt. And Mariah May can go in the ring, like she's good.
Yep.
So it ended up being more or less what we thought it would be. The only real criticisms I have are more for Lady Frost. She is pitched as a gymnast, but she seems incredibly leaden-footed for someone who is a gymnast. Like, it seems like it takes her a little bit too long to get up on the ropes. And when she does gymnastic maneuvers, it's not outstandingly better and in some ways worse than, like, other performers who aren't making such a claim. Like, her kip up is kind of not that good compared to some of the other ones I've seen. Like, when... like just any of them really, but there's a few of them that are absolutely astounding. Like, they look like somebody rising from the grave, almost supernatural the way they can hit a kip up. So Lady Frost really needs to improve her in-ring, and I think she could get there. Otherwise it was a solid enough bout. They seemed to go pretty well together. I think there was one awkward spot, but not so bad that it was like ugh. And it ultimately results in Mariah May hitting her near the end of the match with a kind of a flurry of offense that culminates in her nailing Storm Zero, which I think I get that she's taken on Storm Zero from Timeless Tony Storm, but it's like we've forgotten that she uses Mayday because she uses Storm Zero so much that I'm left wondering, like, is Tony Storm still going to use Storm Zero? Because...
You know what? Maybe she won't. Maybe she's gonna be repackaged or something. Hopefully, not to be squashed.
Yeah. So this, I think, was about as good of a match as you would have expected between Mariah May and Lady Frost.
Yeah,
It was a good enough match. Um, and then moving on from there, we had Darby Allin versus Evil Uno. And again, this is another one where on its face, it's like you've got Darby Allin, who has risen to the top of the card, versus Evil Uno, who is somewhere in the basement of the bottom of the card.
yeah,
And so you're like, on its face, you would look at this and be like, wow, Darby Allin smashes Evil Uno, and it's not even going to be worth looking at. But we were pleasantly surprised. They opened up just a little bit before the match, or earlier in the evening. There was a promo in the backstage between Darby Allin and Evil Uno, and Darby got very much in Evil Uno's face, saying, you know, Moxley has some points about, people that are just languishing here, playing their little video games and collecting a paycheck and not really bringing it in the ring. And so I expect you to bring it in the ring. Show me why you're here.
yeah,
And so we were like, oh, okay, And then, to be perfectly honest, Evil Uno did just that.
yeah,
That was probably the best performance I've seen out of Evil Uno ever. I mean, he was coming intense. He hit a pile driver that looked insane,
yeah,
and he was throwing strikes that looked brutal. I mean, he was beating Darby up, and
yeah,
it was a really pretty good match. It was a much better match than I expected, given who was involved. And Uno was looking very tough, tougher
yeah.
than he has in
I
years.
I have never seen Evil Uno look that tough in the ring. Never. I've never seen it. I mean, maybe hardcore fans of Evil Uno have. I've not though. I've not seen the Dark Order at all do anything that like good, like that hard.
Yeah. And I mean, there were some impressive spots. Like, we see a lot of wrestlers have adopted the pounce as a maneuver.
Hmm.
Evil Uno did it outside of the ring and threw Darby Allin into the guardrail, and he looked good doing it.
Yeah,
Because not all pounces look good. Sometimes it looks like, oh, that was just a train wreck. It was good. It looked good. And I
yeah,
mean, some of that credit goes to Darby Allin for, being able to jump up and fly through the air, but Uno would have had to have hit him pretty good to give him the momentum needed. So it looked good. Uno looked good, and this was a teaser for me. I mean, when I say teaser, it gives me the idea that Evil Uno could come up if given the opportunity.
yeah,
And that's saying something because, I mean, I think he's widely considered maybe the weakest member of the Dark Order. And I mean, I know that isn't saying a lot. It's the weakest of several kind of weak looking members. But it was cool to see Uno be able to kind of step up to the challenge that Darby Allin had given to him. And it makes me want to see more. Like, it
yeah,
had that
yeah.
effect. Now I'm like, let's, next time Evil Uno is on the card, let's see if he steps up to whoop that ass again.
Yeah, so now
Um,
I'm like, oh, so you can go. So now I'm gonna be expecting to see that when you get into the ring.
Yeah, and it was also interesting. Darby Allin went full hardcore at Evil Uno's mask, which was a little surprising because, like,
Yeah, that's it.
I view that as a heelish thing to do, and it was a little
Yeah,
surprising that that's where Darby went.
that's a heel flex. But Darby has never actually come out and been like super face anyway. He's always been a gray area type wrestler, and I think a lot of
That's
wrestlers in
true.
AEW are. A lot of wrestlers like they can switch between being a heel and a face in the same match. Um, and I think that's one of the things I like about AEW. Like the House of Black, for example. There are some faces and some heels in that faction, and you don't see that type of what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, God, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but you don't see that type of uh I guess style. You don't see a lot of that in WWE or in a lot of other wrestling promotions where you have like a faction and one guy here is a total heel, the other guy's a face, the other guy's a in betweener, depending on how he feels for that day. And I like it.
Yeah, I agree. So ultimately, in that match, while Uno showed a lot more promise as an in-ring competitor than we've seen in some time, ultimately Darby Allin does end up hitting him with first, I think, a coffin drop to the outside after he had tossed him out of the ring, and then he rolls him back into the ring to hit the coffin drop while he's prone and get the
Yeah.
pin. And both coffin drops looked absolutely fantastic, particularly the one in the ring, because he fully smashed him. You know how some of these moves look like you only just barely connected with like your,
Yeah.
like your arms or, something like that. Like sometimes
Mhm.
the swanton bomb looks like all you touched him with was the back of your neck. So this coffin drop was like fully all of Darby Allin in the middle of Evil Uno. So it was like he looked smushed. So it was like I could see how that could knock all of the wind out of Evil Uno and believably make for the pin, and it was good. This was
Yeah.
a really good match, a much better match than it would lead you to believe on its face. So pleasantly surprised. Fantastic performance from both Darby Allin and Evil Uno.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, I think there might have been a backstage segment where was it Lexi? Yeah, I think it was Lexi because we were like, she looks a little scarier than normal. Lexi is talking to Willow, and I'm struggling to remember what they were talking about, but I do remember that Deanna Parazzo shows up and starts saying some stuff about like, do you know what it means to be someone's friend?
Oh
If you did,
Lord.
you would be out there, getting their back, and if you're not going to do it, we'll do it. And that led to Willow kind of challenging Deanna Parazzo to a match, I think on Rampage.
No, no, no.
And
She challenged Taya Valkyrie.
that's not how I remember it. I
No?
could
Oh,
have
okay.
swore that she challenged Parazzo, and then because Parazzo has fallen into like I'm Italian and from Jersey, so now I'm a crime boss, and
Yeah.
Taya Valkyrie seems to be her muscle minion, and so after Willow, I think challenged Parazzo to a match, Taya gets in her face, but maybe I'm misremembering it.
Mm.
But I could have swore that the match was Deanna and Willow on Rampage, and then Taya got into her face talking about like, don't disrespect Deanna Parazzo, stuff like that.
I I don't remember that. I honestly thought that Willow went immediately after Taya, and
Maybe
uh,
you're
and
right.
then
I
and
could
then
be
Taya walks
misremembering.
away, and Diana just stands there, I guess, looking quote unquote menacing, and then she walks off. Here's the thing: nobody asked that. Nobody asked for that. Nobody asked for that. Nobody. Let me look. Let me look here. Let me check and see in my pockets for anyone who asked for any of this. Nope. No one. No one. Empty pockets. I don't care. I don't care about Diana Peraza being a crime boss. It's cliche. It's boring. She doesn't strike me as menacing at all. Like there's nothing about her that makes me go, "Oh man," nothing. Um, and I think having somebody like Taya Valkyrie tied up to this, I think that's pretty sad too. She was going after belts when she first showed up to AEW, and now
Yeah.
she's a henchman. A henchman with somebody who just got there?
Yeah,
Really?
and she wasn't just going after belts. At the time, she was going after Jade Cargill because she was
Yeah,
using a move similar to Jaded, and there was that whole shtick. And so, and she was pitched and looked like she could at the time have been a credible competitor for somebody like
yeah,
Jade Cargill. And now she is Parazzo's minion.
yeah. Well, I mean, she spent how long making out with Johnny? What's his name?
Johnny television or something like
Yeah.
that.
She spent however long making out with him and being his sidekick when he went out to lose a match. And now she's the henchman to Diana. I'm not gonna say what I was about to say. Diana Perazzo. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say because I don't know.
Because it would be mean. I know what you
It
were
would
gonna
be,
say.
yeah, but I'm not up on Diana Perazzo. I'm not. And I've seen Taya Valkyrie go in the ring. Maybe did she get injured or something? Where she was out for a while and then she came back and just did nothing but make out with
No,
with
I
Johnny.
don't know of any injury she had, but what I think may have happened is that her and Johnny largely perform over on Ring of Honor, and so what you're seeing is like it's like when NXT people show up on the main roster, and so
Yeah,
we didn't see her for a while because her and like several others end up going to Ring of Honor to perform, and then once I guess they kind of do well there, they start to show up on AEW's roster. I mean, Queen Aminata has followed that same track. Um,
yeah,
and that's coming up. But I would like to give Deonna Purrazzo a bit of a chance. She started to show us something after that last, like, what was it, bullfight match, like Texas leather strap match that she had with Thunder Rosa. And so I would like to see more of that, but I'm with you. I'm not there yet because like she was incredibly disappointing upon her debut. Like her move set is boring, her character is boring.
yeah.
You're certainly not staring at her fantastic physique, and that's all I'll say without going the direction of being mean to her. But there
Right,
was
right.
nothing that was like this makes me want to watch this woman do anything in the ring
No.
until that match with Thunder Rosa, where I saw some stuff and I'm like, yeah, you want to bring some pile drivers and power bombs to that boring offense that you like to use, then I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But
But now, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think we were going to the same spot. We were moving into the next match of the night, which was Queen
Uh,
Aminata versus Serena Deeb.
well,
Or
no.
were you going
Before,
elsewhere?
yeah, but I was just going just a little bit to talk about something that with the match with Diana. Sorry, not Diana, but the match before. Okay, and the issue with Taya Valkyrie and Willow Nightingale and all that. So I can already predict how this is gonna go, right? So Willow's out there and she's trying to show some support for Sakazaki, I think. And that's what was going on. And
Yuka
then
Sakazaki?
yeah, and then that's when Diana shows up with her new minion, Valkyrie, and they're going on and on about friendship or whatever. Because Diana, I don't know why they give people. What is it about the mobsters or like the gang leaders that for any just think of any promotion that has those characters. Why is it the first thing they talk about is loyalty and friendship?
I gotta figure because they're leaning into the stereotype because Deonna Purrazzo started out being like the maestro or some such
Yeah.
thing, and now she
Uh
seems to
huh.
just be becoming Tony D from NXT. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and I mean that isn't like original to Tony D. Tony D is just like Tony Soprano from The Sopranos, who was just like, I mean, pick an
Yeah.
Italian mob thing, and that's what's happening here.
Yeah. So then, after they keep going back and forth, Nightingale made the challenge. She makes a challenge to Valkyrie, right? And Valkyrie accepts. Now, here's the thing. I already know what's going to happen there. Willow's going to get into that ring. She's going to have her match. She's going to beat Taya, and then Deanna's going to come in and beat her up after the match.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, that's my prediction. I'm making predictions now. This is the first one for AEW in the future when Taya and Willow have their match. Willow's gonna win, and then Deanna's gonna come into the ring, probably from behind because they love that. Take the little legs out or something, and then they're just gonna beat her up in the ring. Yeah, maybe somebody will come out and help, and then maybe
Yeah,
then we'll get a
maybe.
tag team match between all four ladies. We'll see, but that's my prediction. Now, sorry, I'm ready to move on.
Well, I don't disagree with you. And I think you were right. I think it did end up being a match with Taya Valkyrie. So if that's the case and Taya's the minion to Deonna Purrazzo, then it's going to be a situation where Willow ends up in like a mini feud, maybe, would be my prediction. And
Yeah,
first she's going to beat Taya Valkyrie, but then her and Deonna are going to beat her up, and then she's going to have to go against Deonna, and it'll be kind of a similar thing. Um,
yeah,
and I mean, I'm not overly critical of the fact that they're using like a stereotype or an archetype. I mean, this is pro
no,
wrestling after all.
yeah, right, right.
It's just this is kind of a new thing, I guess, for Deanna to adopt, and so I'm not sure where it's going or if it's going to be interesting yet.
Yeah, it
Um,
might be. It might be. Who knows? I'm gonna
yeah,
tell you. I'm gonna tell you what'll be interesting for me. If the next time Deanna gets into the ring, she's power slamming and she's a powerhouse wrestler and she's fucking tossing and yeeting people in the ring. If she's doing that, I am in. Let's go. She can. I know she can. We've seen it. So
yeah.
if she's doing
And
that, let's go.
that's the real crux, is that Deonna Purrazzo is going to have to overcome being uninteresting. And I mean, it really wasn't super interesting that Deonna Purrazzo, relatively early in her debut on AEW, got into like the longest repetitive feud with Thunder Rosa. I mean, some of the matches were good, but it's kind of like Carmelo and Andrade. It's like we've seen this over and over and over. Like, mix it up a notch, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, a storied rivalry is cool, but not when all of it happens back to back. Spread it out a bit.
I mean,
Um,
you know what? It could be back to back if they're good. Honestly, look at the matches that Will Ospreay had. Um, oh man, he had a feud with somebody, and it just kept going, and we were here for it. Or actually, we can use Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page. Uh, they had a lot of fights, but every last one of them we were here for because they were good. So if you're gonna do you're gonna do it like that.
yeah.
It's just got to be good. You got
Well,
you got to. It's got to be something that we want to see.
Well, and to be fair, it wasn't something that happened back to back each week. Like, they put a breather on Hangman and Swerve for the entirety of Swerve's title run, and now we're coming back to it. Um, and I do tend to agree, if there's enough heat on it, then we're thirsting for it. But sometimes there's no heat on it, like Andrade and Carmelo or Deonna and Thunder Rosa. It's like, this just
Yeah,
feels like you want there to be heat on it, but you want there to be heat by way of like fiat instead of actually building it with a storyline at all. And I'm just worried that Deanna doesn't have enough force of personality and certainly not enough in-ring interest to carry it off. She
yeah.
would have to change up a lot of stuff. But I don't want to doom it out the gate. I just, at best, I can approach it with hopeful optimism, maybe, like, show me something, but you haven't yet. So we'll see where that goes. But moving on to the next women's match of the night, Queen Aminata versus Serena Deeb. And you had mentioned, like, reaching into your pocket. Nope, no one asked for this. And that's how I feel about Serena Deeb versus Queen Aminata. Simply because I am very up on Queen Aminata as a performer, and I'm very not up and absolutely not a fan of Serena Deeb.
I
Uh,
feel like I'm missing something when it comes to Serena Deep because there are some very strong opinions about this woman online. Like, people say that she is like the female Daniel Bryan, or uh Guys, okay.
Well, I don't
Um,
know that that helps me because I've often not understood why everybody's so up on Daniel Bryan either.
yeah,
Like
but
outside
then
the ring, maybe he's a great guy, but in the ring, he's always been boring as balls to me. So that would be like that wouldn't help me see Serena in any better
mm,
light.
you know what though? Like the difference to me, and this is what people are arguing about when it comes to Serena Deeb. The difference is when it comes to Daniel, um, it's not that he can't wrestle, it's that his style isn't for me. I'm not really
Yeah,
interested in it. What he does well. And sometimes I've seen him go hard on the paint. I've seen my man really get down in the ring. Is he my favorite wrestler? No. Would I consider him the greatest wrestler in the world? No, I don't think I would. Uh, but is he good? Yes, I can say that. And that's where my difference lies when it comes to Serena Deeb. I don't think she's good. I think she used
yeah,
to be. I think she used to be, guys, okay? And I'm not trying to come for this woman at all. But what I'm saying is when she gets to the ring now, it's boring. That Windsor knot bullshit or whatever the hell that is that she does to people, I couldn't imagine being her opponent and having to sell that ridiculous move. Like I don't even know what
yeah,
I would do. And I know every wrestler has a move set. I'm here for it. I understand that. But her move set, her five stupid boring moves are unentertaining. They are
yeah,
unrealistic. I can totally understand a move that I can see somebody do that I'm like, okay, well that wouldn't hurt anybody. Or when a wrestler uses a pinky ring and they hit somebody, I'm thinking, well, you would, your pinky would be broken in real life. Like but that is
yeah,
still some stuff that I can believe. You can still sell me on it in the ring. Here's what you can't sell me on. You can't sell me on tying up a grown woman so that she can't get out of whatever stupid hole that is, and then you kicking her in the side, and that's supposed to be a damaging move. You
yeah.
can't sell me on
Yeah,
that.
no, it's utterly ridiculous because like we see submission holds that wrestlers can manage to fight their way out of. Submission
Yeah.
holds that look like they would effectively lock a person down. You know, like
Yep.
if you get somebody in a camel clutch or a Boston crab or even a single leg crab or any number of them and they can fight their way out. But suddenly this stupid Windsor knot is utterly impenetrable. You know, it's a shame you can't tie that Windsor knot that puts them on their back. You'd get a 20 count.
Yeah.
So it is freaking dumb. And I understand that this is pro wrestling and sometimes there's some freaking dumb stuff, but this is really bad because this only exists because the opponent absolutely plays along and it ruins the verisimilitude of the fact that while we know this is scripted, we're expected to believe it's not scripted. And this just makes me think, oh, God, this only can happen because her opponent goes along for the ride exclusively. It is
Yeah.
awful and super dumb and should go away forever.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't disagree with you. I think you made a very valid point that some wrestlers, their style of wrestling or their move set's just not for us. And that's a valid criticism. I would say that's almost exclusively my issue with Bryan Danielson. And people are like,
Yeah.
he's the best in the world. I'm like, no, he's the most boring in the world because everything he does in the ring is tired as shit to me. Like, I am not here for submissions and a whole bunch of fake striking. I'm here for suplexes, power bombs, choke slams, triple flips off the top of the ropes, shit that actually looks impressive.
Yeah.
And, this is a big part of the issue with Serena Deeb is not only is her entire moveset relatively boring, she also looks like she struggles a lot, like she flubs a lot. And I think a big part of it is because she's so small and so frail looking. And that also plays into the issue of her verisimilitude because I'm not saying you can't have a smaller wrestler beating a bigger wrestler, but the smaller wrestler has to significantly overcome that challenge. And Serena Deeb just ain't got any of that going for her. Her moveset's bad. She looks small and weak. it's a hard sell for me to believe that Queen Aminata would in any universe lose to Serena Deeb at anything.
Yeah.
Just
The
based on physical differences.
yeah. The one thing that I could say about this match is, or the one good thing I could say about, I'd say Serena Deeb, not the match in general, but Serena Deeb, is that the longer we went into the match, or the match in general, I think the more physical things got, which is the problem I think when it comes to matches that they do early in the evening with like the women, like the match between Mariah May, um, that match was like so short, that like there was really no build up, there was no burn, there was nothing that could even like get up and running. It was just I'm gonna come in here, do my thing, you do a little bit of something, but no, slap your hand, I'm gonna win. And I mean, it's not that those types of matches don't have a place, but I see a lot of those matches happening more often with the women than the guys. Uh, so it was kind of nice to see a longer women's match, with Serena Deeb and Amanada, but uh, Serena is just kind of, when she's in control, it was kind of but the longer the match went on, the more we got to see some nice offense from Amanada. She did some really good moves. Um, the little thing that they were doing at the beginning with the little chain wrestling sequences they were doing at the beginning there, um, I thought Serena was kind of clumsy looking. That's, guys, my opinion. Sorry, and I thought Amanada looked pretty good. But I think the
Yeah.
point of this match was to show that Deeb, even though she was a smaller wrestler, she was more seasoned, the veteran, which means that she was going to come out on top. I think that was the point of this match. And I'm assuming that maybe they're trying to go down some path where Serena is going to teach Amanada some stuff. Listen, I don't think she needs to teach Amanada any damn thing. But you know, if that's the route they're gonna go, if that means that Queen Aminata is gonna start getting some wins, then let's go. Like if we're about to progress this woman further, about to make her a true full-fledged member of AEW, then all right, I'm on board for that. But if we're about to do some dumb shit where Aminata is about to be uh Serena Deeb's henchman, not interested.
Well,
Absolutely not interested.
for me, there's a couple of things that I would have done different, and there's a few things that you brought up that I want to address,
Mhm.
because they're good points. I agree that it was nice that this match got some more breathing time. I'm not sure that you could have added too much more to Mariah versus Frost, because I don't know that Frost can go much longer before she's run out of things to do that are interesting.
Yeah.
She's still at that level. That said, I would have booked, as this is my opinion as a fan, and also pairing up the wrestlers that I think needed to be with one another better. I would have preferred the longer match having been against Aminata and Mariah May, and like Serena Deeb could have gone against Lady Frost, because that's more of a proper pairing in my opinion. That would have been a
Yeah.
better matchup. Queen Aminata, I think, is so naturally gifted and good, that what we actually ended up with was Aminata gave the rub to Serena Deeb, which is absolutely backwards. Deeb is the
Yeah.
veteran and Aminata is the up and comer, but Aminata gave Deeb the rub. Like, this helped Serena Deeb's quote unquote credibility more than anything that served Aminata.
Yeah, I agree.
So it was the other way around, because Serena Deeb, just honestly, she's been at it for forever, but she's not that good. That's just the
No.
bottom line. And so you literally had the up and comer give the rub to Deeb here. I would have much preferred to see Mariah and Aminata go, because both of those women can go. Deeb is more where I think should be wrestling someone like Lady Frost. So I would have much preferred the longer, more impressive, timely match given to Aminata and Mariah May, and if I were to switch things up in this booking. That said, it did end up being a pretty good match, and I will give credit where credit's due. Deeb's Detox looked good. That was the only thing I felt that looked good that she did.
Yeah, and it did look good.
Everything that Aminata did, I felt looked amazing. Like the running kick through the ropes against Deeb looked absolutely devastating. Her
Yeah.
German suplexes looked good. Her snap suplexes looked good. Aminata just looks good as a performer. And, you
Mhm.
know, for what it's worth, she's a knockout. So there's that too.
Mhm.
Um, but that's not all there is. Like, she is a very talented wrestler in that ring, and I feel like this is not bringing Aminata up. If anything, it's burying her for Serena Deeb's benefit more. And I just don't think that's the right way to go with it. But that is, of course, my opinion.
Yeah. I tend to agree. But then,
But I
oh,
will.
go ahead.
The other thing I would like to give a little credit to was that Serena Deeb, for the longest time, kept coming out in something that looked like a shabby bathrobe. And tonight, her
Yeah.
robe looked more akin to something that we would have seen on like Ric Flair or Charlotte Flair, or back when he wrestled Bobby Roode, right, with the
Yeah.
super flashy robes, which is
Yep. Yep.
what I think you should be going for. Like, it shouldn't look like you literally are wearing your bathrobe to the ring. I mean, unless you are like in an extremely low budget promotion. So it was good that she got a little bit of a fancier robe to come to the ring with. I mean, if they're trying to push Deeb, then you know that's what you need to do, is to improve all aspects. So I'll give that credit as well.
Yeah. It did look cool, and it didn't. I mean, you're right. Like most of her ring gear did look like bathrobes. I wasn't a fan of the color either. But you know, her little flashy ring gear, it works. It looks good now. They need to hook hologram up with some ring gear.
Yeah. Hologram needs a gear budget as well. For a guy that they seem so up on and who has been like bringing it in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but moving on to folks who absolutely are bringing it into the ring, we come to the
Mm-hmm.
main event of Collision, which, spoiler, it was awesome.
Yeah.
This is a huge 10-man tag match, so two teams of five.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me wonder, like, next week or next Monday, is the main event going to be a 10-man tag on Raw? And then after that, is it going to be like a 12 or 20-man match on Collision? Like, are we escalating?
Yeah.
Because we
Hey,
went from
I'm here
six
for it.
mans to 10 mans. Hey, but here's the thing. I don't know that would work out in WWE's favor, because if that's the case, AEW has tricked them into playing into their wheelhouse, because these huge multi-man matches are
Yeah.
absolutely AEW's bread and
Oh
butter.
goodness, yes, absolutely.
So, but we have two teams. The first team is the FTW champion Hook, FTR, the one of the arguably greatest tag teams in the world, and the youngest men alive and the super over right now, finally, the Outrunners. And
Yeah.
this is Christmas. I was like, we don't even need a match once all five of these men were on the entrance ramp. I was like, this is it. This is the main event right there. It's
Yeah, we're
just
done.
all of them gathered. And FTR came out with the 80s shades, you know, kind of supporting the Outrunners. And I think I even said all that I need now is for Hook to put on the 80s shades and hit a pose, and my world would be complete.
Yeah, then we're done.
But on the opposite side, it's a little more hit and miss. We have GYV. When you see me come and grit your teeth, more like close my eyes, fellas. Like, I'm not sold on them yet. They sure are fun to make fun of, though. But then
Yeah.
we also have Roderick Strong, and I don't I'm I don't know what to say about Roderick Strong. I can't decide if I genuinely don't like him or if I just like making fun of him. Because his in-ring work is very, very good, but his character is very, very annoying. So maybe he's just a good heel.
Yeah, maybe.
Um,
Yeah. There you go. Maybe he's just really good at being a heel.
but it's not like he's going to disappoint you with what he does in the ring. Most of the
Right.
time it's very good. Like
Yeah.
the Messiah of the backbreaker does actually bring it, and his back chops are ridiculous. He hits like a ton of bricks. So
Yeah.
we've got GYV, Grizzled Young Veterans, for those not yet familiar with that acronym. Roderick Strong, but then like the piece is their resistance, and these guys must make a tag team. We
Oh
have
man,
Roosh, and we have the Beast Mortos, and the Beast Mortos is amazing. I mean, I
make
am
a tag
so
team.
uh,
Holy cow.
well, it's all there,
That
right? You've
would
got the
be
Beast Mortos, who is a Minotaur, and you've got Roosh, who is the what does he call himself?
bull.
The Blanco Bull,
Yeah.
and or El Blanco Toro. And so he's always like, "You mess with the bull, you'll get the horns." And so him and the Beast Mortos are like a match made in bovine heaven. Like it would
Yeah.
be such a good tag team.
You ain't wrong. I would be here for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So these are the 10 men that you have coming to the ring, and I'm just stoked. I'm still stoked from watching it. Like this was everything I wanted to see. And so this main event, I was like, oh man, Collision is gonna be
Yeah.
top tier. So
You said the thing.
I
Ah.
said the thing. And so already this is looking great. And I mean, you know it's going to be hard hitting because you've got Dax and Cash of FTR. Hook brings it in the ring, and you know, you've got the outrunners that everybody's super up on, and they've been hitting some really nice spots. And on the opposite end, you've got heavy hitters like Roderick Strong, Mortos, and Roosh. I think the only wild card on the bad guy team, so to speak, are James Drake and Zach Gibson of Grizzled Young Veterans, who are still new-ish.
You're still
But to be
squinty eyed
fair,
at them.
yeah, it's like I don't know what to make of you yet, except
I don't know
fun of
about
your
you
dumb
guys.
catch line, your catchphrase. But like everybody was just demolishing in this match. I think there
Yeah.
was only one kind of slowish spot where I think it was Truth Magnum. To me, it was just the one spot that I think slowed the match down was that they kept Truth Magnum in the ring and away from his corner from I think a tad bit longer than I would have liked. But otherwise, it was just a slobber knocker from start to finish,
Yeah.
and we got to see like the greatest hits of all of these men. You got to see some nasty throws from Hook. You got to see Rush doing everything that he does, including Tranquilo in the middle of the ring. We got to see the Beast Mortos, who did that middle rope plancha like tornillo, and he did it and hit like everybody else on the outside. And it just blows me away every time he does it because you don't expect. And I know this sounds cliche. You don't expect a dude built like that to be that quick, but the
Yeah.
spin that he gets on that tornillo, like
Man. Yep.
is
Yep.
cat 5 as far as hurricane force weight.
Yeah.
And we got to see Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum hit what is it, Shatter Machine, as so like FTR and the Outrunners are like buddy, and you got to see Dax and Cash get in there and just rough and tumble with folks. It was everything you hoped this match would be. And
Yeah.
Roosh, who we haven't seen a whole lot, this I think did wonders for, and it teased like this idea of Roosh and the Beast Mordos coming together, because
I am here for that.
I think after Mordos like obliterated everybody outside the ring with his spin, he gets back in and helps set up the horns from Rush, and that looked tremendous as well.
Yeah.
And then he guarded while Rush got the final pin, and it was a heck of a match. Even though my guys didn't win, I was here for it because the guys that they lost to, I'm also kind of here for them too. Like they're all
Yeah.
good in this ring. Um, And yeah, I mean, I'm just super here for it. If Mortos and Roosh decide to like form a tag team, that would be insane.
Yeah, do it, guys. Do it. We're here
Or,
for it.
just to keep the theme going, they form a triples team with Beef.
Oh God.
I don't really want that. I just wanted to make the cheesy joke. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, this was amazing. So, like between an opening bout with Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, and the Kingdom, that was like a main event, and then this 10-man tag, which was like a main event. I was just thrilled overall with Collision.
Yeah.
And even kind of the lower spots, like the match between Mariah May and Lady Frost, like it wasn't bad. It just wasn't like a
No.
highlight reel like some of these other
Right.
spots were. But we had just a tremendous amount of solid in-ring performances, and hologram Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, and the Premier Athletes was a solid match. Mariah May and Lady Frost was a solid match, or at least as solid as it could have been, because I think Lady Frost still needs to come up. Darby Allin and Evil Uno was a surprisingly better match than I thought it would be. Queen Aminata versus Serena Deeb, all issues aside of whoever I'm a fan of, it ultimately was a pretty solid match. And as you pointed out, they gave the women a nice lengthy match to show their stuff. And again, to Serena Deeb's credit, the detox on Queen Aminata at the end looked fantastic. So I have my issues because I have my preferences, and I felt weird about some things, but I'm not going to take away from what was easily a B+ match. It was good. And then you have, for the finale, the 10-man match, which was just all of the fan service in the world. Because I mean, Outrunners and FTR can't go wrong. Who doesn't love Hook at this point? The Beast Mortos is everything. Like, I don't know whether he came out of like AAA or CMLL, but thank you for giving him to AEW so that we can watch this guy. He's fantastic. Rush has always been a treat. He just weirdly disappears for a long stretch of time and then comes back. So hopefully we can get something solid going with him. A tag team with the Beast Mortos wouldn't be a terrible way to go.
I would love it.
Roderick Strong and the Kingdom have been solidly performing, like in the absence of Wardlow and Adam Cole, which I don't even affiliate with the Undisputed Kingdom anymore. It's really just Roderick and Matt Taven and is it Mark or Matt or Mike Bennett? I think it might be Mike Bennett. Those guys are the Kingdom. Those are the Kingdom. And then you have the Grizzled Young Vets, which I think for me was the weakest element in the 10-man match because they're still new and they haven't really blown my socks off with anything yet. The most memorable thing about them is how ridiculous Grit Your Teeth is. And that's it. Like, they stand out as something I want to make fun of, which can ultimately work in your favor. Kurt Angle used to be chanted "You suck" because everybody felt like he sucked until they didn't, and then he was over. So that could work in their favor if they end up becoming really good, performers and get us over on them. But this was an absolutely aces collision. If you watched any wrestling over the weekend between WWE and AEW, I have to give the hard win to AEW this week and this weekend. Like, Collision absolutely was fantastic versus SmackDown's mediocrity. Like, that's just the way it is. I don't want to harp too long on it. Because it'll be like, are you a WWE hater? I'm not. I'm just disappointed because I know how much better the WWE can do, and this was totally phoned in filler episode of SmackDown. So if anybody listening watches anything over the weekend, check out AEW Collision. Absolutely a banger if you're here for some good, really, really good wrestling action. I think I gave it away at the beginning, but I'll restate it now. For my part, Collision was top tier.
Yeah, for me, Collision was top tier. And I don't want to harp about WWE. I mean, everybody's got an off night. It happens. Um, it's just if I was gonna pick a show to watch, and I had only one, it would have been AEW. This week, it
Yeah.
was just it was
Oh,
overall good. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just realized I got so caught up in that 10-man match that I forgot the capper to Collision. The cap of the night was Nigel McGuinness cutting an absolutely insane, forever amazing promo on Bryan
Oh yeah,
Danielson. The final word before they have their match on Dynamite this week. Um, and Nigel McGuinness went absolutely off. Like,
yeah,
again, since we were talking about SmackDown versus Collision, the big promo on SmackDown was obviously Roman and Cody standing in a football field comparing dicks. I don't think that actually, even though it had 10 times the pomp and circumstance, I don't think that held a candle to the heat and the vitriol that Nigel McGuinness was able to cut into his promo on Bryan Danielson, and how
yeah,
Bryan, is faking an injury because he's afraid to step in the ring with him, but Nigel McGuinness will have his vindication because he should have been considered, the best wrestler in the world. Every bit of Bryan Danielson's career should have been Nigel McGuinness's. And back when they were in Ring of Honor, he absolutely declares that he was the better of the two of them. And that just builds not just heat, but like volcanic fire for this match coming up. And
yeah,
man, Bryan Danielson had better be cleared to wrestle, because if not, I think there's going to be a riot. So,
yeah.
uh, I throw it back to you. I just wanted to mention that because I didn't want to forget to add it into what
Nah,
happened in
yeah, yeah,
Collision
yeah.
and why it was the thing to watch this weekend.
Totally, yeah, totally understood. Uh, no, I would give this a top tier rating for sure. If I was gonna put a number on it, I would give this uh episode a 7 or 8. That's really good. That's it was really solid. Um, I'm not too sure where they're going with some of the storylines, but I'm here for it. At least something progressed. At least something moved. So definitely top tier. Um, yeah, and I think that's about all I gotta say about that. Forrest Gump style.
Well, there we go. So, thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of Top Tier Wrestling Podcast.
Mm.
It was an absolute banger of a Collision and kind of an absolutely missable filler episode of SmackDown, unfortunately. But we look forward to seeing what was going to happen on Monday Night Raw and AEW Dynamite. And we hope you join us when we podcast about those episodes as well.
Yeah.
So, thanks for joining us, everyone. This has been Top Tier Wrestling, and now time to roll the outro.
Bye bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.